Yes. So joining us today is Maria Matheka. Maria Matheka is our facilitator today. We are delighted to have Maria Matheka, who is a seasoned HR professional with 15 plus years experience across multiple sectors, including logistics, manufacturing, healthcare, and construction and shipping. Currently serving in a senior leadership role at Africa Global Logistics Kenya, where she leads initiatives in talent management, leadership development, performance management, and succession planning. Maria is passionate about developing leaders, building a strong talent pipeline, and making succession planning practical and sustainable. Today, Maria will be will take us beyond the theory and shape the practical approaches to implementing a succession planning within our organization. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give me some reaction. Our speaker reaction, Maria Matheka, is here. She'll be sharing shortly, but in that case, give me reaction. Welcome her as she begins the session. Maria, if you are here, please, the platform is yours. Please take us through what you have for us today. Thank you. And please put your questions on the chat box. If you have any comment, put your questions on the chat box. Towards the end of the session, we'll give at least 2 or 3 people opportunity to ask questions. In this time, allow me to welcome Maria to start. Thank you so much. Recording and
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for the invite. I hope you can all see my screen. Please confirm. The moderator,
yes, we can see your screen. Yes, Maria, we can see your screen. Well and good.
Okay. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for such an interesting invitation and also an interesting introduction. So, just briefly, my name is Maria Matheka. I'm a HR by profession. I have about 15 years experience in HR. I'm really passionate about HR. Thank you so much for everyone who has found time to join. Today, we are going to be going through our first part of succession planning. My approach is I believe that HR is a very practical and applicable thing. So there's really very little we can be able to do. I don't want to make this session something that is theoretical. I want us by the end of this session to be able to understand what succession planning is, and also distinguish it from what people think is succession planning, which is in essence something we call replacement planning. I'd also want us to go into a little bit about why organizations fail when a key person leaves the organization, despite them having quote unquote a succession plan. And then I want us to go into basically what we're going to be discussing as critical roles. So I want us to discuss what in our opinions are critical roles and how we can identify the critical roles within the organizations that we work in. So I'm cognizant of the fact that with us here, we have people who are maybe founders. So they're in founder-led organizations, or they're the founders themselves who are leading an organization. We have people who are working for SMEs, small companies, people who are working for corporates, people who are working for multinationals, NGOs, INGOs. So basically, HR spans through a lot, medical field. But the good thing, I think, with the HR is the fact that it is applicable in all sectors. So whatever it is that we are going to be going through, I would like for us to be able to keep in mind how we can be able to apply this within our various spheres. I want us to move away from the fact that I think when we hear succession planning, especially for those who are very new, maybe minus 1 to 3 years of experience. Of course, succession planning may have been sold to you as something very out of reach that can only be done at 5+ years. I want to tell you that this is very applicable and it can be done at any level that you are in terms of HR. Number 2, when you look at succession planning, I want us to not be fixated with what I would call idealism. I want us to be properly founded on the fact that we need to be able to have a framework in which can be applied. So how can you apply a concept? You can only apply a concept once you understand it. So I would maybe encourage the listeners, trainees, to be able to first of all understand what the concept is when you're dealing with succession planning. Once you understand the concept, then the application of the same becomes very, very easy. However, if you're fixated with what the definitions are, what it means to a different organization and not to yours, you may not be able to apply. I'm a firm believer that you can be able to apply succession planning for all organizations. Succession planning remains a very critical role for HRs. I think in the near past, we in the current world that we're in, we are seeing more and more HR being required to have most of, I would say, like a business angle in terms of its application, as opposed to maybe previously when we joined the career where it was mostly on admin and leave. We are seeing more and more HR being brought into the business world and being asked to become more of business partners as opposed to just admin managers. So with a firm grasp, especially on aspects to do with succession planning, you then become a business leader as opposed to just a personnel manager. So I hope you can still see my screen. So as I've said, our learning outcomes is I want us to be able to explain what succession planning is and what it is not. So I think that both aspects would be able to assist us, especially when it comes to us understanding what we have in place within our various organizations. Is it succession planning or is it something else? Okay, then I want us to be able to distinguish what succession planning from replacement planning, because those are they're two very distinct areas. Number three, I want us to be able to understand why some organizations fail, or maybe the organization which you may be working for had failed in terms of coming up with a succession plan. And then now, lastly, we will go into the identification of critical roles using business risk as opposed to what most organizations are currently using, which is hierarchy, popularity, or tenure. Because I'm not able to do a dual screen. If you have any questions, I think the moderator will be able to moderate on that. So I'd like to pose a question as we start, and I think at the chat box we'll be able to give your answer. So I want us to start with a hypothetical question. So if today is at night, so let's say tomorrow in the morning, if your most experienced supervisor or manager resigned tomorrow, I want you to tell me what would hurt first. So how would you notice it first? So what it is that, first of all, identify who the supervisor is, who you think is very experienced, and what would hurt first. So hurt is HURT first. So we'll give it just like around 1 minute, and then we'll be able to read through the answers. So just to be clear, I can repeat the question. If your most experienced supervisor resigned tomorrow, what would hurt first?
Please post comments on the chat. If someone is bold enough, they can unmute and share their thoughts. But please make use of the chat. This is a very vibrant class. The business. Liz is talking about the business. Thank you, Liz. Another person. Let's make this class as interactive as possible. This is adult learning. There's no right or wrong answer.
So 30 more seconds. I'm not sure if anyone is writing on the chat box. I think we can be able to.
Tina says coordinating process flows. Doreen says the task related to role. Winnie says who will process or approve the tax payroll or report. I think that's the finance role. Sandra talks about systems. Please keep your comments coming. We want to make this session as interactive as possible so that you're able to go and implement. Elsa talks about replacement. Kabache, my task stalling due to approvals. We are seeing you there, Kabache. Your tasks stalling due to approvals. Winnie again talks about customers. There's the customer aspect of the business. Selena talks about decision making. We are HR in the room. Please give comments. There's no right or wrong answer. We are here. We are adult learners. Right, back to you, Maria.
Okay. I've read from your comments. So I think one of the things that is clear from the comments that have been read is, of course, there's going to be affected processes. There would be affected customers. There would be estimated time before the impact becomes serious. So there is definitely going to be a gap. So anytime we lose an experienced employee, there is going to be a gap. So by mere virtue of the fact that this person is an experienced employee, we are going to suffer some consequence. So either mostly it's going to be delays. Sometimes it's a total shutdown. Sometimes it's customer complaints because of this one person who has left. So what surprised you from the answers that we made, and what assumptions did you make? So what has surprised you from the answers that we have seen from everyone? I think personally, I have been shocked by the one that talked about the payroll. If you're not able to if somebody leaves, there would be no approvals, and I'm giving the assumption that this person is doing a one-man show. I hope that would be my correct slash incorrect assumption. But now going into the meat of this discussion, I want to know, again, I'm not able to do the dual screen, so I think the moderator is going to check. Who has heard about succession planning or any part of succession planning? Have we all had some bit about succession planning? So if you have, you can just do a thumbs up. Let's start with if you have. Who has heard about succession planning? I don't know if you're having some reactions. Let me try
Yeah,
and do
people are reacting. People are reacting. Thumbs up, Mbogo, Kabache. Kwani watu wameinteract na succession plan kidogo hivi? Mudhoni, Dorothy. Majority seems to have interacted with this succession plan. Back to Maria.
Okay. I've enabled the dual screen so that now I can be able to see both the reactions as well as be able to moderate on this side. So, in terms of those who have not, I want to see the reactions from the people who have not had any interactions with succession planning, and this remains a very new concept to them. So, let me see. I'm trying to see. So, how many have not had any interaction with what succession planning is? Is anyone who's not had any interaction?
Florence, thank you, Florence. Didi, I am sure I don't know what Didi means, but yes, there's some reaction. Cynthia, there are quite a number that have not made this grant.
Okay. So we have like a mixed bag of fruits, and I think this is one of the best ways in which you can be able to learn. So, what is succession planning? So, in a nutshell, which I'll start with what it is broadly, then we will delve into it slowly by digging it deeper and deeper until we get to a place where we are all having the same understanding. So, What is succession planning? So succession planning is basically planning for the future within roles in an organization. That is just the simplest way I can be able to describe it. Succession planning is planning on the critical roles within an organization with the view of future, in the future, being able to maintain those roles and have people in those roles. That is the long and short of it. So there's some aspects that I want us to note about succession planning. So please note that succession planning it is structured. So I know there's the part where we say, for example, if we have a clerk, then we have a senior clerk, then now we have, let's say, a supervisor. There is an unspoken quote unquote in terms of if the supervisor was to leave, the senior clerk would definitely take up the role. That is not succession planning. Succession planning, it is deliberate. So that means that it is something that is working in the background. It is structured and it is a process of identifying, assessing, and developing internal talent to fill critical roles. So I think one of the things that we need to, the terms that we will be referring to a lot within succession planning is it's a structured approach, it's a deliberate process. We will be doing a lot of assessing and we will be developing internal talent. And we'll have one word that we're going to keep saying over and over again is critical roles. So for those who are taking out, who are writing some short notes, so that is what we need to keep in mind. So succession planning basically, as I previously said, is us planning for these critical roles, how will they be filled? Understand? So in terms of filling the roles, how will they be filled? When will they be filled? Do we have people to fill them? And if we don't have people to fill them, how can we ensure that we have people to fill them in a timely manner? So that is it in a nutshell. Why? Why should this be done? Basically, taxation planning protects business continuity, capability, and institutional memory. I think we have all noticed scenarios where a key person within our teams leaves, and we are all scampering around to try and understand how was this being done. Do we have notes for handover? And even in the place where we have handover notes, they really cannot be able to put everything within one handover notes list. So we have lost quite a bit in terms of institutional memory. Then there is no continuity, especially where we do not have a ready successor. We find that because of the gap, there is no continuity. So the new person who comes in sort of starts to reinvent the wheel. I think we have seen those situations where, let's say, a HR manager has left, the HR officer or the assistant HR manager does not have the capabilities to take up that new role. So what happens? What happens is there's like a gap where the HRO is sort of trying to fill in the role as we continue the recruitment process. Then once the new person comes, they come in and we do not have sort of like a continuity. They sort of start their own trend. So at that point, business continuity is disrupted. When you get like a new person on board, most probably will not get fit for fit. So you're not able to see the slides.
I think okay now.
There's somebody saying the slides don't seem to be moving.
I think
Are we able to all see the
it's
slides?
moving on the end now. They've
Oh,
confirmed
it's
it.
moving.
Yes. Please proceed.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, in terms of where was I on capabilities? Most probably because when we are filling out a role, we may not be able to get like for like. So we might get, maybe if you're filling out a HRM role, we might get somebody who is much stronger when it comes to strategy and not into operations. And maybe the role needed operations. I don't know which role that would be, but so you find you're not getting like for like. And because this skill or this talent has not been ingrown, this person is sort of going to take 6, 7 months to be able to change over in terms of understand where we are at, the company culture, how the objectives of the company, where we are at. So at that point, the company is still losing out because productivity is reduced. Something else to note is that which is, I think, where most companies fail, is that succession planning, it is role driven first, then talent driven. I don't know if we have seen, and I think you can just do the reactions in the chat where we say this person has been here for a long time and they would be the best likely candidate for that role. Like, say, we see like a HRO who has been with the company for a long time, and we say that this would be a good person to take up the role of the HRM once they leave. So what have we done there? We have identified talent first, then role second. It's supposed to be the other way around, and I will discuss about why that is a pitfall later in another slide. But please note, with succession planning, it is role driven first, then talent driven. Number 3, it connects what? Critical roles, things that were discussed, talent assessment, readiness, development, and review. All these critical roles, talent assessment, readiness, development, these are terms that we're going to be handling one by one to understand how all these tie into what we're calling succession planning. Then lastly, modern practice also considers talent pools, future capabilities, not only one named successor. So when we will be discussing about successors, we will look at successors in terms of multiples as opposed to only taking one successor for one role. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because the unpredictability of the human being and also of the organization. So the role might increase into more than one role. Are we together? Okay. So before we go to the other, just 1 minute, kindly allow me 1 minute. I'll be back.
Eugene Onyango will respond to your question at the tail end of the session. Please stay tuned. If you have any question,
Sorry
please
for
put your
the
question in the chat box.
what? I wanted to just deal with one disruption. I think
Please proceed.
I'm back. So I hope we are together as at that point. I want to mention one critical function so that we can all be able to understand. When we're dealing with succession planning, we are dealing with the role as it is. As we said, that succession planning is what? It is role driven. So the aspect of the role is the role as it is now. But I want to add another aspect. The second aspect is that it is the role as it is now and how we envision the role to evolve in the future. Have you all gotten that point? So it's not just, let's say, for example, if you are doing succession for business development manager. So what do we envision this role as at now? What are the competencies that are required? Person specification, what objectives, what KPIs should they be able to do? But what are we seeing this role as? What is the evolution of this role in the next 2 to 3 years? I hope that point has been captured. So that when you're planning for succession, we are not planning for the role as at 2020. You understand? There are succession plans that were in place for 2020 for maybe like for a role that we are saying the readiness matrix would be 2 years. But when you're planning for a role, we must have in mind what is called the evolution of that role. How does this role evolve? What do I mean by evolving? What I mean by evolving is right now, this role has requirements of 6. You understand? But what will be the requirement of this same role in the next 3-4 years? That must be that key aspect must be taken into account when we are doing the critical role identification. Fine. So I hope that is clear. We can still discuss it in the questions. I'm hoping that this session will be very, very I don't know if there's somebody who's not muted.
Please mute. Let me just do that for you, Maria. Let me just allow me to be able to mute. Yes, we'll have a Q&A session at the end.
Okay, so just a few more slides before we close, because I want this to be our first introductory. Then I will give some assignment for us to be able to do, which we will now review as the first part of the next discussion. This is a three-part series. Sawa sawa. So I have discussed about what succession planning is, and I want us to go to what succession planning is not. So what succession planning is not is succession planning is not a promotion list. And I think this is what we see in most organizations where we have what we are calling these are the key performers. So these are the people we need to consider when we are doing promotions. Again, succession planning remains not, it is not a succession, it's not a promotion list. Number two, it is not a reward for loyalty. So such that this employee has been with us for 6, 10 years, 20 years, and they must be considered as part of succession. No, it is not. Again, we've said it is based on, it's driven by role first, then talent driven. Fine. Number three of what succession planning is not. Succession planning is not a guarantee that somebody will be promoted. Number four, I think that is clear. It is not a list of favorites. Okay. Number five, and this I think it's for us HR professionals, it is not a once a year HR exercise. And I think this is what in most of our organizations we are doing. We are making it a once in a year HR activity and exercise. So this is we're purely driving it. We have pushed off all the business leaders. We're the ones that are doing head to tail about it. While we remain the people who have the technical expertise on succession planning. However, there is a greater contribution that several business leaders have to make and have to understand when it comes to succession planning. Then, lastly, succession planning is not a plan for only senior managers. It is a document for the whole organization. So now let us discuss what succession planning is. Okay, so succession planning, it is a business continuity mechanism. So we would say that this is basically a BCP for most organizations. Number two, it is evidence-based talent decision. You remember what we said? It is role-driven and is evidence-based. How is it evidence-based? Because every step that we take when we're doing our succession planning, and true to the word, succession planning, it is in itself a what? A plan. So in every stage of this succession planning, there needs to be evidence. When we identify, and I think we'll do that just as towards the end of this discussion, when we talk about a critical role is it's evidenced by you sharing why you think this is a critical role. Why is HRM that role calls the HR manager? Why do we say that that is a critical role and would say a finance manager is not a critical role? Why would we say like a finance manager role would be a critical role and the MD or CEO role is not a critical role? How does that happen? It only happens when you have evidence. So all through, we need to make this process as objective as possible, because once we set our decisions based on the objective reasons, we are now able to defend it. We are now able to pass it from one department to the next. It's a readiness and development plan. Yes, when we get to the IDPs, we'll also discuss on the readiness and also on the development plans that need to be made. It is transparent and it is a challengeable process. And I think this one for HR, it's quite the thing. We know with HR you don't want to be challenged. So please note that this plan, it needs to be able to pass the challenge test. It needs to be able to be challenged. So that such that if you tell me that this is a critical role, we must go through the critical role matrix to qualify this role as a critical role, as opposed to X role and Y role. Again, it remains a living management process. We've said that this is an ongoing process. It is not a once in a, it's not a one thing. It's done once a year. It's a continual process. It's not just done once and then we close. Fine. And then what is the focus? The focus remains business critical roles. That is why sometimes when you're doing the business critical roles, you will find that sometimes there is a business critical role that is a clerk role. And I think in the past we have only said that the succession planning is for senior management. No, it is not. Succession planning is for business critical roles. Are we together? It's not just for, you say we are going to, there's a business critical role that could be the HRM role may not be as critical as the HRO role. Depends organization to organization. So it is based on business critical roles at any level. And we need to be open enough to have those plans and be able to explain them even to senior leadership in terms of why a clerk role remains in the succession planning while some middle management roles are not. Fine? So the critical test here is if a person leaves, does the organization still have a credible way to protect the role? So that's the question I want to leave you with. As you're looking at what succession planning is, how you want to set it up in your own organizations, please ask yourself all the time, the person when a person leaves the organization, does the organization still have a way to protect the role? Protect the role here means can that role still remain in terms of do we have a ready successor? Okay. Then I want us to discuss on replacements. Succession planning versus replacement planning. And I know this is sometimes this is where we try to, as much as possible, say we have succession plans in place, but then we realize no, it was just always a replacement planning. So we look at several dimensions. I've noted that the slide has moved. So with the first one, we look at dimension one, which is the trigger. For replacement planning, the trigger, it is triggered only by a vacancy or expected exit. So once somebody resigns or somebody is dismissed, that is the trigger for replacement planning, because now we begin with how can we replace the role. But for succession planning, their trigger is business continuity and future capability. I think we discussed about future capability when I said that what is the future requirement for this role? What will be the requirements for this role going into the future for specific roles? Number two, question. The questions that are asked at replacement planning are who can fill this role? At succession planning stage is what roles must be protected and who can become ready. You see, succession planning is always looking at the readiness. That means it's looking into the future. But when you look at replacement planning, we are at who can fill this job. Okay. Then we look at the third aspect, which is time horizon. With replacement planning, it is immediate and short term. With succession planning, which we're going to be discussing, is ready now, ready in 6 to 12 months, and ready 12 to 24 months. We'll also discuss why after 24 months it becomes invalid. Then we go to the fourth aspect, which the fourth dimension is for replacement planning, we are focusing on position and incumbent. Again, remember what we discussed. When we are discussing about succession planning, we're looking at critical role plus the talent pool. Talent pool is how much skill do we have available within the organization to fill out this role. Then go to number 5, development. Replacement planning is often limited. It's very limited. But with succession planning, it is planned, it is targeted, and it is measurable. We will look at the how we measure IDPs or PDPs, how we plan for the trainings and the upskilling for people who we have identified as possible successors. It is targeted because we are doing a targeted approach to upskilling successors in the hope of ensuring that we have ready successors. You understand? So succession planning remains a very targeted approach. It is not random. Number 6, the risk view. Of course, replacement planning is reactive. It happens when we are at the point of recruitment because we need to replace somebody who has left, who is being terminated, who is on a who is on a PIP, somebody who's being dismissed, who's been terminated. So it's very reactive in nature. However, succession planning, by the mere fact that it's planning for ready in 6 months, ready now, ready in 12 to 24 months, it's in itself a proactive approach. Then lastly, we look at the outcomes. So the outcome of replacement planning is temporary, cover, or hire. We're looking for somebody to temporarily hold, or we're looking for somebody to hire. So you'll find, especially for replacement planning, some of the things that you will observe when, if you want to check if your organization has replacement planning that maybe you're calling, we're having a succession plan, but in itself is replacement planning. You will realize that you, from time to time, you have these things which are called what? This allowance that is given. It is called that allowance where somebody has held fort for another person. That allowance where maybe, for example, the HRM has left, so the HRO has taken over the role for a while. So the HRO is given a sort of like an allowance to hold fort as we proceed to do what? To hire. So that means there's no succession planning in the works. But when you look at succession planning, we get we the outcome is what? Sustained capacity, capability, and bench strength. Okay, so what is my second assignment to you? The first one I think I had explained to you to be able to check if you guys have. And number two, I want you to check using this matrix. I want you to gauge your organizations, your various organizations. Are you guys doing replacement planning or are you guys doing succession planning? And also, once you discover you're doing replacement planning, now we need to be able to work with you in terms of moving it to succession planning. Okay. I want to give a small exercise, and I think we'll do it on the chat now. So a scenario, I'll give you a scenario. We promoted John because he was the best operator. So that's the scenario. We promoted John because he was the best operator. So I will ask a question. What evidence would we require before calling John a credible successor? What could still go wrong? You've understood? Sorry. So we promoted John because he was the best operator. So that is the statement. So what evidence would you require before calling John a credible successor? We can answer that in the chat.
Please share your response on the chat. You promoted John because he was the best operator. Normally do that.
So we say that John has been promoted because he's the best operator. So what would you require before calling John a credible successor? We've promoted John because he's the best operator. The question is, what evidence would you require before calling John a credible successor?
Mbogo says potential. I don't know whether you can unmute and yes. RCHRP says level of experience, performance standard, employee loyalty. Eugene says ability to take more responsibility. Morris, having held a brief exiting staff. Julius Stock says assess the requirement of the next role before promoting. John Karimi says bench strength for the role. Okay. Derek says capability and his competency in what he delivers. Dorothy Kirori says consistency of performance and proactivity. Anyone that wants to unmute maybe? All right. It says competence and skills, ability to perform seamlessly and ensure business continuity without complaints. Rispat says strategic capability. Marty says performance, competence, and academic proficiency. Maurice, performance appraisal results. Thank you, Maurice. Nancy says previous work experience. Right? Okay. He says good at what he does and tested that he can make it. Imelda says performance record, assess this against the role requirement. Martha Kaleche says evaluating his performance to determine whether he is fit for the role and not whether he meets the required qualification. And Njenga, his performance appraisal and the recommendation from his performance from his immediate supervisor. Maria, back to you. I know there will be so many comments that we could go through them through the end of the session. Back to you, Maria.
Okay.
There's so many.
What we've just done there is called the replacement. It's called the replacement trap. Why are we calling it the replacement trap? Because if we are promoting John, it needs to be part of needs to be part of the succession plan. So we are moving away from doing replacement planning. We are doing succession planning. So three evidence points beyond tenure and technical performance. What surprised you and what assumptions did you make? So always when you are doing the promotion, this is an operator role. So that is, we promoted John because he was the best operator. These are operator roles. So when you're looking at succession planning, as we have said, it is the role, not the person, the role. So what does this role actually entail, and what are the skills that are required in it? The person specifications. So those are what should be able to guide us when we are doing our performance, our succession planning. Are we together? I hope that is clear. Now, lastly, before we go into the critical role identification, which is something I think we will do partly today and then partly next week, I want us to discuss about why do organizations fail after a key person leaves. So I want to pose the question first at the chat box. I'll just give like 1 minute because I see the time is almost at 8:30. Why do you think that the people that an organization fails after a key person leaves? So I want us to base it on a key role. You identify a role, so you say the role, then you put a colon and then tell me why. Why do organizations fail after a key person leaves? And who are you considering as a key person within your organization? Is the question clear? The question is clear. Can I repeat?
Yes, it's
So we
very
are
clear.
asking how organizations fail after a key person leaves. So, like for example, you'd find in terms of maybe HR, because I think I have more experience in HR. You find the HR manager leaves, and most projects just stall. So basically, everyone else starts doing the day to day. So day to day would be leave, payroll, attendance. So everything else, training, analysis, succession planning, everything else grinds to a halt. We now are just waiting for the next person to come. So that basically means that the organization has failed. If you look at a commercial environment, you find in terms of maybe when the BDM, a key BDM leaves, business development manager leaves, a huge chunk of some clients go off with him, or there is a dip in terms of the sales volumes at any given month until we do a replacement, and then now this person has to work themselves up to the level of performance of the previous person. So those would be my examples on why on organizations fail when key people leave. So why do those things happen? Or you find a CEO or an MD leaves, and the results start dipping almost immediately. So why would you think that would happen?
Right, let me go through some comments in the chat box. Flo says, let me start with Sandra. Sandra says lack of work planning. Flo says CEO lack of mentorship and succession planning. That's a broad one. Lynn says man syndrome. The person did everything, no written guidelines, no SOPs. Any other comments? Right. Boko said poor knowledge management. Wow.
Okay.
Mercy
We'll give it
says if the key person was working alone and the assumption of the management that this is the key person, this key person can't leave. There's the can't leave syndrome. Information hoarding, kibaya.
Okay. We're not going to leave anyone out. Just you can continue typing, then we'll still go through it. I think we've mastered quite a few here, and it's nice to see that HR has a grasp on why these things happen, especially when key people leave. So the first thing is they confuse a strong incumbent with a strong successor. I think we've discussed this. So where we think to ourselves, um, the person who has been there cannot is as strong as a strong successor. Number two, they identify people before defining the critical role and its future requirement. So you understand, we had said we first identify the role, the critical role, and then the future requirements. Then now we identify all the people. So you find in organizations where you find us saying, Maria has been in this organization for 5 years. She should be the next HRM. After 5 years, she knows all about our business. So she should be the next HRM. So what have we done? We've identified the person before before we have defined the critical role and the future requirements. Remember always, when you're identifying a critical role, it's not the role as it is today, it is the role as it is today and its evolution in the span of, you can give yourself 3 years. If your company has a strategic plan of 5 years, that must be the evolution. So we are seeing a HR role, like a HRM job, like a HRM role like this today. How does it evolve in the next 2 years? How does it look in 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030? And also in this evolution, what are the skills that will be required to grow? So if we're talking about 3 skills in 2026 and in 2030 we'll need 6. So in our critical role identification, those 6 for 2030, they must be in play in our succession planning. I hope that is clear. Okay, then the third one, of course, is we have no emergency cover while long-term success are developed. So we have a succession plan, and ours is 3 years, and we are working on it. However, there is no emergency cover. We will also discuss as we are doing the succession plan cover, which is it's a metric. I think for those who are already doing succession planning, you know that there is the metric that we are gauging ourselves against, which is the succession plan cover. So we need to be able to have an emergency cover. And that's why I think in a previous slide I have said anything past ready in 2 years becomes not very effective or efficient for our organizations. You understand? So that we do not have the long-term successor syndrome, and within the shortest time we are unable to identify an emergency cover. So there must always be an emergency cover. Then there is the overrate readiness. Let me give you this statement. She has done the job for 10 years. She can perform this role tomorrow. You understand? So maybe, for example, you see an assistant, like, okay, let's say like a senior accountant who has been in the organization and also assisting the finance manager for 10 years. And then we say, they've been here for 10 years. You should be able to just step into the role and start. You understand? Continue. They create a single successor dependency. I think we've discussed this in previous slide. One person becomes the next single point of failure. Proceed. They fail to transfer tactic knowledge, stakeholder relationship, and decision context. Proceed. They never fund or track the development action. So you find when you've come up with the development plans, the companies call them PDPs or IDPs, where you find organizations, they don't fund them. So we have a PDP in place, which has training actions and development actions, but the company has totally refused to do what? To fund them. So that when that one person leaves, the rest, they become obsolete. That role becomes obsolete because now we need to start recruiting somebody else. Lastly, and there's so many other reasons which I think I'll also take from the chart, is they treat succession as confidential HR paperwork instead of what? It's an operational risk. And I think more and more companies are getting into the habit of giving succession as an operational risk. When you're doing our risk mapping, we are doing a lot of mapping of the succession risk, because I think the 2-3 organizations that I have worked in succession, we are now mapping succession, the succession plan cover. It's being mapped where we are having a risk. It is being mapped when you're mapping the company risks. Okay, so I give you some brutal truths. People risk the people risk becomes operational risk when critical knowledge, authority, or capability sits with one person. So anytime where you see that we have operational knowledge, authority, and capability sitting with only one person, I think this is something that happens a lot within some organizations. There is already a risk, because once this person leaves, we now are caught flat-footed, and then we need to do what? To do emergency hiring. Okay, so those become single points of failure. They become panic hiring modes. We have extended acting appointments because of that risk that we've identified. We have loss of institutional memory. We have, of course, customer and revenue disruption. I think most of us have got into situations where this one person who had all the critical knowledge and authority and capability leaves, and they leave with what? They leave with all the clientele or some clientele. So we are risking at the same time customers and also revenue. Or maybe this one person is the only person who talks to all customers. So once they leave, the customers now have nobody that they can come to. You understand? Then of course there's leadership fatigue and burnout, because if you're holding two or three roles as we do the replacement planning, you can be sure you're going to suffer from burnout. So are there any questions up to that point? I think I'd like to stop there, because the next one is how we identify a critical role. So we've discussed quite a lot about these things we're calling critical roles. So with succession planning, we start with what we're calling as critical roles. We identify them. So I think for me, for our next discussion, I would like for us for the people who are going to be joining us for the next meeting, kindly come with a list of what you term as your critical roles, and then I want you to tell me how you have arrived at those critical roles. So back to you, moderator.
Thank you, Maria. Isn't that a wonderful presentation? Please give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up if you have enjoyed the session. For me, I've followed the session all through, and every day we learn something new. Thank you, Maria, for agreeing to share knowledge with us and allowing us to drink from your cup of wisdom. So we want to take questions. So I'll be going direct to the chat box. Then I'll give. So if you have any question and you want to raise it, by yourself, please use the reaction button to raise your hand. I will spot you, give you an opportunity to ask your question. If you have comment, please do the same. Right now, I'm going through the chat to be able to pick some few questions so that our speaker can be able to respond to them. Right. So Eugene, you had a question. Let me start with a question that Eugene had asked earlier. I don't know if I'll get it. There's so many. Asks Eugene Onyango and Maria Matheka. I hope you are still here with us. How do you retain the successors after investing in them to take up the role? Now, this goes down to the retention. You have already invested so much in them. How do you now retain them, Maria?
Okay. First of all, we have to be cognizant of the fact that you cannot keep this person. That is why, from what we've discussed today, we've agreed that we cannot have a single line succession plan. It has to be multiple. Because even for ourselves, if you decide to leave an organization or you get a better deal, you must leave, right? So on the flip side, I want to give this as maybe from my personal experience. I want us to consider something called succession planning as not a HR project. You see, in some organizations, we go about succession planning as a hidden project. So we've not told this person that we are developing them, or that all these trainings that they are going to, this is how we project for them to see. This is how we see in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. This is your future within the organization. Also, one of the pitfalls I've had in one of the organizations is where we did not notify the successors. So first things first, please do not do a single line of succession. Never do that one. The second thing is, please make sure that this person is fully aware. How are they fully aware? You have the discussions. You have when we'll be discussing about PDPs. That PDP is an active document, a living document. We need to be able to meet and discuss. HR takes a very pivotal role when it comes to succession planning. So meeting with these people, discussing with them, seeing what are their constraints. If you're and number three also, if you're considering this person for succession, and they're already doing the trainings, they're doing shadowing, they're doing work assignments, they're being co-opted into projects, you need to also be able to consider them for a special allowance. Why? Because they are doing their work, or maybe partly their work, they are also learning another role. You understand? So with all that in play, you need to be able to consider them for an allowance. Where you're having a budget constraint, then you need to be, as a HR, then you need to be very good at your convincing power. You need to be able to explain to them where it is that you see them. One of the tricks that I've seen work for me is, especially where we are having succession at, I'd say at a higher level, is being able to discuss in terms of what you are, what is your future with us? What is your career path? And we've had to drop career paths, I think, which have been revised year on year, just to make sure we're keeping this person fully engaged. Lastly, please find out what is the motivating factor. I think for high performers, you will realize that most people are motivated by different things. The people who are motivated by recognition, ensure that you've tapped into that. People are motivated by maybe being co-opted into projects, being added into discussion forums, into think tanks. So find out what is their motivation, and you need to tap into it. So that is what I would add. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria. And also, it's important that we don't develop people only for position. We should rather develop them for career within the organization. And then maybe to add on that, you have to be able to also have show them a clear career progression, because remember, employees also want to show, also want reasons why they should stay in those organizations. To ensure that there's a clear career progression, there's meaningful development opportunities, just to be able to extra motivation. Don't just prepare them for the position, but see beyond their career. So moving on swiftly, thank you. Teresia, kindly share the slides. Teresia, please allow us not to share the slides for conflict. No, sorry, not for issue of conflict of interest, but there's intellectual property. We don't normally share our slides for training, but of course, the recording will be shared. We'll upload them in our YouTube channel. We'll share the link. You'll be able to follow through. So Teresia, allow us not to share the slides for the training. John Karimi is asking, is succession planning the same as job shadowing? I don't know whether you want to answer that, or we can pick all the questions, then you can respond. But we'll talk about job shadowing. Most people confuse job shadowing as succession plan. What is the difference between the two, Maria?
Okay, so I think from the discussion we just had, job shadowing is a form of replacement hiring. Why? Because we are not foreseeing the growth of a role. So we're looking at you learning one role. You understand? So you're learning my role. What succession planning is? It's a much wider and more objective exercise. Every time you look at a process that you think is succession planning, I want you to always ask yourself, was there a critical role identification matrix done? Or is there a critical role identification matrix for this role? Has it been done? No. We just took the person who we think can be able to take up the role, and we have taught them the role. So I would say no, it is not.
So, under staff training and development help in planning, in this planning activity? Yes, it does. That is a simple answer. Staff training and development helps in succession plan, because once you identify, you have a clear staff development strategy to be able to prepare them for those roles and those positions and that. Nancy, Maria, thank you for that session. You have mentioned that succession planning should not be single line. What if the company is too big to have a bench of potential successors? Let's Maria, I hope you have gotten the question. Talk about big companies where now you cannot have a bench of potential successors. What happens?
Okay, so I'm a firm believer in us starting from somewhere. So definitely start from somewhere. Definitely do the single one. If you can only get one, please do. However, you can also try, maybe this can help. Can you be able to try and do multiple? So you're developing multiple people. So that you don't do just one successor for HRM, one successor for maybe HRO, can you be able to sort of like grow simultaneously? You can grow one at this level and also at this other level if you are constrained. But if you're completely constrained, do what you can be able to do at that point. When you go into the critical role identification matrix, you will understand it more when I say start where you are, because there are items that you will need to start where you are and then continue to grow. So most definitely start where you are. And when we do the identification of critical roles, you will understand why I'm insisting for us to start where we are. I hope that is clear.
Thank you. Start where you are. Uh, Mbogo is asking, an unidentified successor be dropped off due to various reasons? If yes, won't this action demotivate the employee? You have identified the potential successor, but for one reason or another, you want to drop them. Is it
Okay.
possible?
So yes, of course, definitely. There's nothing that is cast in stone. However, I hope once you do that action, you understand that the RCA on that, when you do your YY analysis, you will realize that one of two things did not happen. You did not have a critical role identification matrix, or if you did have it, your PPM, when you did the performance potential matrix, when you are doing that measure, it was not objective. Because you see, when you make it as objective as possible. Remember when we went through it, we said this process has to be objective, all the stages. When you are identifying a role as a critical role, you must use a matrix. Once you identify the critical role, you say that now we have these five. When you are identifying people you are calling possible successors, that process in itself has to be as objective as possible. That is why we use the what performance potential metric. And I would want, okay, maybe we'll discuss it about which ones are the best ones when you're doing the PPM, but those have to be done. Number three, which I would now add, is the PDP. How is the PDP done? For us to get to a point where we are now stopping the succession midway, definitely maybe the PDP was done wrongly. But if you're going through the stages as objectively as possible, this should not happen. And yes, if you drop out a success, of course you're going to demotivate the employee, especially when you have already started developing them. So that would be my answer.
Thank you for that insightful response. Lavin is asking a very interesting question here. Is succession planning the same as proactive sourcing? Is succession planning the same as proactive sourcing? Maria, you want to go there with that?
So I'm not so clear with what proactive sourcing would be. Is proactive
Lavin, are you able to
sourcing?
mute? Are you able to unmute and ask your question? Maybe you could shed more light on your question. Lavin, uko hapa? Ameingia mitini.
Okay, so maybe I can, before we close out, I'd like to discuss about what we should expect for the next session. So for the next session, I'm hoping the feedback from this and also being able to go into your companies and seeing, are you guys doing which type of are you doing replacement planning or succession planning? So go through what I had shared in terms of the dimensions, the triggers, the questions. Find out, are you doing replacement planning or succession planning? If you are doing replacement planning or you're doing succession planning, but it is not very factual, kindly put in place time for you to start. I'd like to insist that you need to start small in whichever capacity, but it needs to start being done. Succession planning is a value add for you as a HR to your organization. Is it hard? No. Is it time consuming? Yes. Does it need to be objective? Yes. Do you need it guided? Yes. So it's not something that you can just wake up and do, but it's something that you must wake up and do. I hope that is clear. You must be able to put that in place, especially if you're looking at the long term growth of your organization. Also, as we had said, we are looking at HRs at HRBPs as opposed to us as HR managers. So being able to add on to that, I hope that will help. And then who else can we? Okay, before we close, also as we said, please, I want you to, for the guys who are going to be joining the session too, we are now getting into the meat of succession planning. It's going to be a very practical session. So I want you to come with a list of critical roles that you have identified within your organization and how you've come up with it. Because at the end of that session, we will come up with, every one of us will be coming up with their own critical role identification matrix. We will also be looking at what PPMs are and PDPs. So we'll be able to come up with our own critical role identification matrices. PPMs, that the ones that work for our organization, we'll see the various ones and which ones work for us and which ones will not work for us. And then also PDPs, how to create one, how we monitor it, how to make it effective. Of course, the third session now becomes how you're going to do it in terms of governance and also in terms of oversight. I will also, in the third session, be going on a step by step. If you want to introduce succession planning within your organization, you have all this knowledge on how to do it. How do you do it? Day one, day two, your Gantt charts. How do you monitor the progress, etc. So that is three. But for two, it's the practical part of it. I hope that's clear. Thanks.
But Maria, can you give Maria some reaction response, some reaction? Thank you, Doreen. Msikuwe wajua na reaction yao. So I want to give at least two people an opportunity to ask questions. They can unmute, they can raise up their hand. I'll pick randomly. Two people, two at most three. Anyone with a question that they want to ask. Thank you, John Karimi. Anyone with a question, with a reaction, you can give even recommendation. You can give us feedback. How the session be before we proceed to the next segment of the day. Anyone with a question in one? Anyone with a question? Okay, thank you. I think like this is a very brilliant class. These people have gone to group of school. Thank you, Matheka. This is quite informative. Now we spoke about the GEM Next Level HR Mastermind. So we are going to, this session is being recorded. We are going to share it in our YouTube channel. We are going to share the YouTube channel within, once the link is ready, we are going to upload it in our YouTube channel and we are going to share with you so that you can review the session. Now, we just want to talk about some few activities that are happening. Remember, we said we are more focused on a community, building a community. And there's some of the few activities that are upcoming that probably, maybe some of you might be interested to join. If you can see my screen, one of us, Emma, we are launching wellness. We are launching what we call a wellness, employee wellness. If you're looking for a community, please reach out to me. I'll post my number on the chat so that you can reach to me directly. You can chat me. We'll share the link with you. We are only charging 1,300. That is just to be able to for the venue and also for your snack. But again, we are opening to anyone that is in this room. Of course, we had put it to a specific community, but for the sake of everyone here, you are all welcome. So if you need further guidance, please reach out to me. I'll be posting my number on the WhatsApp. Another one that we are sharing currently, allow me now to share my screen again. Allow me to share my screen. So GEM Next Level, we also believe in grooming people. We're grooming leaders, grooming HR, and we are looking for mentors. Mentors, we want to capacity build HR professionals. We are looking to capacity build HR from campus. We want to go to those campuses and mentor those young boys, young ladies and gentlemen. Those ladies and gentlemen, they are our young siblings. So please, we are looking for volunteers. Then, if you are here, then without, please, you could post your number so that people could reach out to you, or you could post the link so that we are looking for a group of mentors. So the only requirement we are looking for, at least someone with 4 years and above. And of course, if you are below that, you can also let us know. We'll still guide you on how probably you can contribute your skills. But again, we believe in sharing our expertise, and that is why we are doing this on pro bono. And anyone that is also looking for mentorship, there'll be another form of mentorship that will be launching soon. That are looking to transition or those that are looking to grow to their next level. So that one, more information will be given. So any question or any comment before we wind up this session? Anyone with other feedback? I have shared the link to our WhatsApp group. I'm available mentor. Jen Gitao, please share your number within here. Jen Gitao, please reach out to Jen Gitao. Her number is 0796 727559. If you are available to mentor, Jen Gitao is there. Mine is, I'm typing my number on the chat box for those who want to know more about wellness can also join us. So that is my number, 0725 14 3002. I hope that is right. Coach Jen says share call for mentors. Yes, let me share call mentors here. Let me share the poster here. So that is one. We have shared the poster. So, and the link, there's a link that has been shared by Jen. Please use that link to register. We will reach out to you and guide you further on the next step. Anyone with a question, again, for our WhatsApp group, you're able to, I've shared the link for the two. Please, there are two WhatsApp group. One is at the capacity, but if you can join it, well and good. But we have also another second WhatsApp group that we share content. We share content there. If you have any question relating to HR, it's a very safe space that you can share. I'm still looking for more questions before we close up. Do you want to say something? I'm seeing you there, Coach Jen. Jen Mutisia mwingine. All right. So I'm also sharing the poster for the employee wellness. Employee wellness, you can reach to us. We will guide you on how, because of course, this is also a way to just be able to be part of a community. And we are giving an opportunity to just be able to network, to meet the potential mentors, and just to be able to be part of a community. I know it's very difficult to be an HR without a community, but that is what we stand for. So that. Maria, any final thoughts? And I'm looking for people to give us their key takeaways. Please type your key takeaways in the chat box. I'm looking for 3 volunteers to give us their key takeaways for this particular training. What are they going to do differently today? I'll be picking randomly. Ann Njenga, Ann Award John, Beryl Okeo, Carol Coker, Christine. We are so many of us. Let at least 3 people volunteer to be able to give us their key takeaways. What are their key takeaways from this session? We cannot leave this room without knowing what are our key takeaways. Mwende Kalinga, you wanataka kusema kitu? Dorothy, unmute. Dorothy, unmute and say something. Don't be a keyboard warrior. Replacement guys are succession planning. That is a key takeaway. Another one, give us your key takeaway. All right, Maria, do you have any parting shot? Do you have any final words? Kibaya said that being under succession planning is not guarantee for promotion. Yes, thank you, Kibaya. Maria Matheka, do you have any final thoughts before we bring this meeting to a close?
I think my final thoughts are I hope we've been able to demystify what succession planning is. I am a key believer in that all these all these terms can be demystified and they can be applied. So whether you are doing your first year or more than your first year, you're at 15 years or 20, you can still be able to refine. So I hope we've been able to add value and we will be able to add value into organizations. Again, thank you so much for the team for inviting me I'm very, very happy and I'm excited to be able to pass knowledge to learn also from everyone here on what is that we're doing and how we can make succession planning work for us in our different organization.
Thank you so much, Maria. And for me to you, please give Maria a round of applause. Appreciate her. Give her an emoji. She has devoted her time. Is if you Maria, if you can share if you want people to reach out to you, I don't know whether anyone might want to reach out to you. Succession planning best practice, don't pick employees. Thank you, Teresia. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Beryl. So I think the meeting is over. So thank you all of you for joining. So I'll allow each one of you to now thank all of